If you can connect communication goals to what the business really cares about, like getting more customers or improving the brand's reputation, you can prove your value to leadership.
And so having clarity of purpose and clarity of thought when you identify and define those objectives is a key aspect of any PR team, making sure that they're measured correctly.
Tie your PR comms objectives to the company's key priorities, whether it's increasing revenue and improving customer retention or launching a new product.
We want to improve our brand visibility. Whilst these are nice statements, they're not things that are easy to measure. Data literacy, and I would add data visualization skills as well.
I'll add two others: strategic thinking and crisis management.
You don't want your agency ideally to be the people measuring the results of their own work. You want that independent aspect out there.
Hello everybody. You may agree with me that one of the challenges of PR comms professions today is showing ROI. We understand the value we bring, shaping perceptions, building trust, influencing key stakeholders and more. But the challenge lies in articulating and quantifying this value in ways that resonate with leadership, particularly when it comes to business impact. And joining me today are two global leaders to share their experiences on how the challenge is being addressed globally. Raina Lazarova is a global chair of AMEC, which, as you know, is the Association for Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. She is also the co-founder and COO of Rupoint, which is a global media intelligence provider. And Todd Grossman, he is the CEO of Placid Ventures, which is a GTM advisory firm, and he's an adjunct professor at the University of Connecticut's Digital Media and Design Department. He was a former CEO of America's The Talkwalker, the leading consumer intelligence company. Thank you for joining me today, Todd and Raina.
Thanks for having us.
It's really nice to be here.
So, Todd, first to you. How easy is it to link communication KPIs or objectives with business priorities, with business objectives?
So thank you for asking that question. It's not always easy to show how communication efforts directly help a business make money or grow. But if you can connect communication goals to what the business really cares about, like getting more customers or improving the brand's reputation, you can prove your value to leadership. And I can share an example with you by not naming the company for a software company. They wanted to grow revenue by getting more new customers and keeping current customers from leaving, so keeping their retention. And the communications team's job was to improve brand awareness and position a company as an expert in their field through media coverage and content. So what they did, they concentrated on three things. They got the company's CEO featured in key media as a thought leader. They created a white paper, which was a bit of a report on industry trends, and pitched it to journalists. And they hosted webinars with key partners of theirs to attract potential customers. And as a result, they had 15 media stories in those important industry outlets with a 92% positive tone. They had a big jump in brand visibility in measuring share of voice in conversations about their industry. It went from 18% to 27%, ahead of their two peer companies. And the media campaign helped generate 20 new leads, and 6 of them became paying customers that resulted in about $200,000 in new revenue. And the customer loyalty improved by reducing the churn by 2%, where fewer customers left the company. And why did this work? The communication team just didn't focus on PR metrics like numbers of stories and these vanity metrics. They actually tracked the results that mattered to the business, like new leads and revenue growth. And it showed leadership that the communication efforts were helping the company hit key business goals.
And they were able to show how PR was leading into leads?
That's correct.
And how? How did they measure that? How did they show that?
Well, they were able to look at the campaign, the media campaign, and it generated 20 new leads, and 6 of them became paying customers, and then they were able to look at that revenue. So it was a direct result of the campaign that generate those leads that were coming in.
Okay, very interesting. Raina, your take on this one, on linking KPIs with outcomes, business outcomes.
Absolutely. I love Todd's example because it's a textbook example of linking communication objectives and business objectives. And there's nothing that speaks louder and clearer to the C-suite and the board than revenue and profitability. I'll give you an example with a UK brand, Specsavers, for example, who have always, is kind of in the public domain as a brand, suffered from being associated with an older audience rather than a younger audience, whilst, as you can imagine, glasses and other services they provide can and should be products that any generation needs to use. So for them, reaching a younger audience as a comms objective has maybe not immediate revenue implications, but definitely a link to business objectives when it comes to what comms can do to improve the reach and the visibility of the brand. So multiple different examples and objectives can exist. And I think when we speak about objectives, it's really important that these objectives are SMART. And one of the letters in SMART is realistic. And so having clarity of purpose and clarity of thought when you identify and define those objectives is a key aspect of any PR team making sure that they're measured correctly. Because not always you can track the relationship with revenue.
You spoke about defining objectives, but what do you think one should not do when defining objectives?
Oh, wow. There's so many pitfalls. I think definitely being vague with objectives is a no-no. It doesn't help the business. It doesn't help the comms efforts. Setting objectives such as we want to increase revenue, or we want to be we want to improve our brand visibility. Whilst these are nice statements, they're not things that are easy to measure. So whilst on high level, you can have those broader objectives, you can't necessarily measure based on those broad objectives. So be specific and be realistic with what you're actually measuring. And of course, a big challenge is if you have never measured, where do you start? What's your baseline? And a lot of times we get questions from clients, okay, what's good and what's bad? What's the baseline? And a lot of the work that we, I think, as a measurement community do and consultants do is set those benchmarks and create those baselines that help clients start on this measurement journey and start with a foundation that gives them something to talk to their C-suite about. And once you've started, once you have that landscape, that baseline, we always say, look, measure yourself against your past performance. So what you're looking for is an improvement and a trajectory that goes upwards. If that's the measurement that you want to look at, and also look at competitors.
If we wanted to summarize key 3 business objectives when it comes to PR comms, it's what does the business really care about most right now and align with the business goals. So tie your PR comms objectives to the company's key priorities, whether it's increasing revenue, like Raina mentioned, improving customer retention or launching a new product, or enhancing brand reputation. And then another objective is really setting those goals that you can track with the data, like the share of voice, the media sentiment, the lead generation, or the audience engagement. And it will show leadership the real impact of your efforts. And finally, focusing on the audience and the messaging. So knowing who you're really trying to reach, whether it's customers, investors, or internal employees, and what message do you want them to take away with.
Where do you see, in your experience, and you're seeing globally, comms team, what percentage do you think are really successful at aligning communication objectives with business objectives?
I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And in a perfect world, everything should stream down to what the business objectives and the goals for the companies are, and how everyone's goals are tied to that and how they get to that.
So would I be right in saying that what I'm hearing is that there is still a long way to go? This is what we need to do, what comms teams are trying to do, but yes, there is a distance to be covered.
Well, I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and hopefully we'll get a bit into AI. There's no better time. It's a golden age in terms of getting more information and data and being able to use humans with AI to augment this.
What about aspects like trust and reputation building? These are intangibles. What would be the metrics, according to you, to measure something like this?
So measuring trust and credibility can be tricky since they're more emotional and perception based. However, there are a few ways to track progress through indirect metrics, such as gathering qualitative insights to demonstrate intangible benefits. So you can use sentiment analysis to measure tone and perception, track how people talk about your brand in the media, social media, and customer feedback. So we know that positive sentiment integrates growing trust. So how you can track this is through media sentiment scores, your typical positive, neutral, negative stuff. You track it through social listening tools to see how your brand is perceived. And you can do surveys from customers and stakeholders asking about brand trust. These trust and credibility surveys can be done running the reputation surveys with key audiences, whether it's your customer, partners, or employees. And you can also track reputation based on trust by measuring the increase in word of mouth referrals, earned media placements in trusted outlets, in long-term partnerships, and looking at employee retention rates even, where a trusted brand keeps their employees, as we know. And then I guess the number of inbound partnership requests can increase. If it increases, then it shows more companies that want to be associated with that brand.
What about crisis situations, which is where trust or reputation really gets impacted? What are the metrics you feel that one could be actually evaluating the performance on?
There are like a half dozen of metrics that I think are really important: volume and velocity, to understand how fast a crisis is spreading. And it's important to help track the crisis escalation. Maybe nothing, or it may turn into something. Looking at the sentiment trend, if the public perception is improving or worsening, it shows if your response is calming fears or concerns out there. Virality is really important of key messages, how well your response is being shared, and it ensures that your narrative is getting out. Is it starting online and is it then going to media? Or is it going to media first and then going to social? Looking at influencer and stakeholder sentiment, seeing how key voices are reacting to this, and help track the trust among those key audiences. And then the media coverage and misinformation, which we see is growing, that disinformation and bot campaigns and bad behavior out there with fake accounts and profiles. How is the media covering that crisis, and are you able to control the narrative?
The best measurement when it comes to crisis is preventing a crisis and managing an organizational brand reputation in such a way that crises happen less frequently. Obviously not always within your control, but sometimes the lack of an event or activity is a manifestation of success and is a measurement of success when it comes to how well PR people do their jobs. When it comes to measuring after the crisis has taken place, lots of great examples that Todd shared with us in terms of looking at KPIs and various attributes in different channels. What I'll probably add to that is measuring a crisis and the management of a crisis requires instant insights and requires very quick turnaround times. As opposed to if you're measuring something much more longer term, such as brand visibility and improving reputation over time. AI and technology can be really helpful in providing those quick insights, but it takes a maturity of the team. And we haven't spoken about budget yet on this call, but budget is clearly an essential part of being able to provide the tool set that the PR team needs to be able to do their work more effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. Let's move on to technology. And technology today is probably the base of everything, a lot of things that we are doing. Todd, first to you. Are AI tools today robust enough in terms of measurement? Are they as robust as what was traditionally being done on the measurement front?
I think they are just continuing to get more robust and robust. When I started in this space, it was good and helpful, but now it's like light speed in terms of what can be done, and it's only going to get better and faster, and speed is important to get the information. I think that AI has really democratized how companies can be working with the technologies. And I think some of the smaller agencies out there in particular, and some of these newer measurement vendors or tools out there are going to leapfrog some of the older established companies because they can move quicker. And AI is able to put people on the same level playing field. I think it's a must that people need to embrace it.
Todd, would you like to mention a few tools for our audience also, which they could refer to when it comes to measurement?
So you have your typical measurement tools like Meltwater, Talkwalker, Brandwatch, and then you have your disinformation tools like Cyabra out there that can really uncover the disinformation out there. I'm still waiting for the tool that is really predictive and being able to see around the corner, but all these tools are getting better. That's the holy grail, being able to help your CEO see around the corner.
Measurement company or agency will use their own set of tools, either proprietary or third party. Some of the ones that Todd mentioned are more on the self-serve side, where you can go in and do your work yourself. But any other measurement and evaluation company would have a tool set of their own, which they will be using with some degree of AI or automation already implemented. If you want a refined, very precise interpretation of how you perform and your brand has performed or campaign has performed, you still need a strong consultancy element. You need to have your domain experts come in and look at that data and those automated insights and make sure that they make sense and that they can create context for your client. Automated insights on their own usually lack the context of the client. They lack the knowledge that you as a consultant have of that brand, the journey they've been on. And so I guess if I can have a prediction for the next 12 to 24 months when it comes to PR and automation, we will see more and more AI being used and implemented in workflows as opposed to just using a third-party interface. So agencies and brands and companies like ourselves will start implementing that technology in workflows, but also we will see even bigger value being put on the human consultancy element when it comes to making sense of those insights.
Todd, your predictions for the next 12 months?
I think the world is going to get smaller and smaller because AI can really help with foreign languages. So whether you know Spanish or Chinese or English, it's all the same now when it comes to AI, and then AI can put it in the language that you're most comfortable with. And I think that's really going to help. We're in a golden age. We're like TV was on the forefront in the 1950s when TV first came out and things just started exploding. This is just warp speed. We're just beginning.
Let's move on from metrics to a more wider discussion. Raina, first to you. How do you present metrics to stakeholders who do not have a communication background?
Realistically, the only way in our experience of being able to communicate effectively is to speak the language of your audience. And I think it is the onus of us as people who are good at communicating to appreciate that and to adapt our language. In other words, definitely something that we should all avoid doing is to go to the C-suite and talk to them about number of mentions or AVEs or media reach. We reached 5 billion people. Well, there's not so many people in the markets that we operate in. So, be careful with definitely vanity metrics, but also any language that doesn't make sense to the C-suite. The C-suite is interested in and can talk about increased market share. They understand revenue opportunities, they understand prospects, they understand the language of the business more so than any comms specific KPIs. So when we communicate the impact and outcome of our work, we need to be able to translate them in the language. And the best way of doing that is to align those objectives with business objectives. And I think sometimes, I guess, it's important to acknowledge that comms doesn't exist in isolation. We are part of a much bigger infrastructure that the business has. We have an awful lot of dependencies on other teams and functions, such as marketing, sales, overall strategy. So being able to articulate those dependencies is also important and fair when articulating the results of your work. You can't be attributing everything to the comms. Comms is part of the mix, and it's important to acknowledge everyone else's work.
Any suggestions for what metrics work when it comes to the board?
Definitely don't use outputs and things like AVEs or number of mentions. Oh, we have 5,000 mentions this month. So what? I guess is the question. Further down the value chain, and using methodologies like the integrated evaluation framework, which was championed by AMEC, take you to things like trust, brand perception, trust, audience trust. Depending on your specific organization, it can be things like revenue increase, it can be visits to your website, number of registrations. If we take again the UNDP example, where the immediate objective was to collect more pledges from parents around the world around the climate emergency. So all these things make much more sense. Increase and try and prove improvement all the time, rather than the answer is 5. 5 doesn't mean anything. It's about the trend that you are trying to demonstrate.
Very right. So any magic bullet to show that PR is working effectively?
Magic bullet to show that PR is working effectively is linking communication efforts directly to the business outcomes, such as leads, sales, or reputation improvements, which can lead to improved trust.
I think that's the core of our entire discussion, and we all agree on that. Anything you want to add to that, Raina, or you agree with this?
I just add be honest and transparent when you report on those results. Sometimes you will be a bit behind where you want to be. But, keeping your feet on the ground, making sure that you are realistic and honest about the outcomes and what you deliver is important in the journey. And ultimately, it is about the trust that you create between your comms team and the management and the rest of the business. And you need to be a trusted partner of those different functions.
Important skills for PR professionals. 2 skills, each of you, if you can say.
For me, definitely data literacy, and I would add data visualization skills as well, are 2 very important skills that are becoming increasingly important. Historically haven't been connected necessarily with the PR job, where we all come from a background of writing press releases and being good at narratives and telling stories. understanding how to work with data and visualizing data are increasingly important for the PR team.
Very interesting. Todd?
So my storytelling was taken in terms of the financial literacy. So I'll add two others that weren't mentioned: strategic thinking and crisis management.
What would be, and again, let's say 2 or 3 biases you think could come in the way, in the way of actually doing good measurement?
One that comes to mind immediately is we don't have the budget. We don't have the budget to do anything, so therefore we're not going to do anything. So we'll focus on SOS, sending out stuff. Let's send lots of stuff out, but not care about the outcome. So definitely think about budgets creatively. Sometimes you can do measurement as a DIY, a bit like, in your home, you need something done. You don't have the budget to ask a trader to come in. You can paint the walls yourself. So start with something, track yourself, use the tools that are freely available, things like Trustpilot, look at your Google Analytics, look at, what's in the media that you can easily get access to, even if it's not professionally run, even if it's not very comprehensive and exhaustive. I think starting from somewhere will give you, a good foundation to maybe start to defend a bigger budget down the line. And I think the second bias probably I would articulate is to say, look, it's too complicated to measure. It's too nuanced. It's too multifaceted. How do you go about measuring? And I think, again, for that one, sometimes we all need an external, a mentor, an advisor to help us out. I would say reach out to peers, reach out to associations like AMEC, who will be very happy to help you with some free advice, or maybe connect you with someone who is very happy to share. There's plenty of materials online on the AMEC website around best practices, everything free to access. So you don't need the budget to start, simply start.
Todd, any biases?
I'll just add, imagine being able to grade your own homework and tracking only positive metrics and ignoring negative feedback to possibly get compensated based upon the goals that were given to you, and ignoring other stuff that may be important, and focusing too much on vanity metrics like impressions can cause bias.
Yeah. Raina spoke about budgets. So the question is, are budgets very difficult to come by for comms team?
They're increasingly difficult, yes. And I think in the current environment, definitely something that companies and comms teams are struggling with. I think what helps, and we can see has helped over the last few years, is a better maturity amongst the agencies when it comes to using budgets. Ultimately, in many cases, agencies control the overall budget when it comes to PR and comms, and having an appreciation and understanding from the agency side of the importance of measurement is a key element of it. Clearly, an important aspect of that is having objective measurement when it comes to obviously having ideally an independent measurement provider who is actually running your PR campaign. Like you said, grading your own homework type of thing. You don't want your agency ideally to be the people measuring the results of their own work. You want that independent aspect out there. So yeah, very much a place where budgets are difficult to come by, but definitely, you can definitely see in bigger organizations, there's more awareness and appreciation. It's more difficult in public sector bodies, smaller brands, to see a healthy budget that allows you to do the things that you want to do when it comes to measurement.
Todd?
Yeah, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to secure budgets, especially if you can't show leadership the direct link to business results from your work. And I think that as much as budgets could be increased with good work and showing direct links, I see, and I'm always glass half full. In this case, with the use of AI, I think budgets will go down. You won't need as many humans to help with everything. You will need humans still for human sense checking that Raina talked about and things like that, and for the consultative part of things. But I think AI is going to lower costs.
If I were to take an average for maturity index of measurement, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put today companies on an average? Where are we?
I'll just take a look back first. So when AMEC was started more than 25 years ago, I'd probably say we were at a 1 or a 2 max in terms of awareness. From my work at AMEC and as a leader at a measurement company, I rarely come across clients these days and comms professionals who have not heard about measurement. So when it comes to awareness and understanding, there's rarely someone who wouldn't have known or heard about it, or even had been involved in an organization where measurement has been an essential part of the comms function. If we talk about implementation in the current comms functions, I'd probably say in the mid to top tier, medium-sized and large organizations, more than 60-70% of those organizations are currently doing some form of measurement. As you go down the size chart, my sense is that it's less prevalent. And some of that is a function of the fact that, look, a smaller brand has less media exposure, less things to report on, and it's less likely or less, needed to have something more formalized. But I'd say definitely around the 70% mark would be my sense.
Todd?
I like that number. Nothing more to add.
Okay, and the last bit, and Raina, you spoke about human insights. So just your quick take on human insights in brief, a short take.
It's always been important and it will remain important. Maybe increasingly important actually with the advent of generative AI. I think it's very tempting to say we can do everything with AI. It's cheaper, it's quick. We don't need to rely on anyone, we can do it ourselves. And that creates a pitfall. I think it's increasingly important that we pay attention to the nuances, to the details, and be careful about what data we plug into AI models. The famous saying goes, you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So it's very easy to get misled by those quick insights based on rubbish data that you've put in.
Yeah, Todd, human insights?
It's here to stay. It's not going away. Yeah. Just make sure you know how to use AI to augment it.
Let's move on to if each of you can share an example of a PR or comms campaign or effort on managing reputation, ideally, or whatever else you think is where the impact in terms of business priorities could be effectively measured. If you could share one detailed example on that.
Yeah, I have, I had to think about this. I see, particularly here in the US, sustainability, DEI, more and more companies are revising their positioning as we have a new administration coming in. And one example that comes to mind is a global fashion brand was faced backlash over accusations of unsustainable practices. And to rebuild their trust, they launched a sustainability promise campaign, highlighting its efforts to reduce waste, use ethical sourcing, and improve working conditions. And how they measured their impact was, in the short term, the sentiment analysis using social listening tools, tracking public perception. Immediately after the campaign launched, they looked at share of voice, how often the brand was mentioned in positive sustainability conversations compared to their competitors. And then in a longer term measurement, they conducted surveys with their customers, their employees, and their investors to measure their changes in brand trust and credibility. And then they looked at their media analysis reports to show how many positive stories ran in their top tier outlets after the campaign launch. Their positive sentiment increased by 30% within 6 months, and their brand share of voice in sustainability conversations grew from 12 to 20%, and their survey results showed a 15% boost in customer trust, and saying that the company saw the brand as a more ethical company. So with a combination of real-time data tools and broader research methods, it helped the brand demonstrate their PR efforts directly to improve their reputation. And I think this is going to be more and more coming in the new year.
Thank you very much, Todd, Raina. I think I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure our audience is going to as well enjoy listening to this.
Thanks for your time and for showing interest in this domain. It's really something that we strongly believe in as an industry, and it's really good to hear more PR people and wider audience is interested in it.
Totally, couldn't agree more with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a very enjoyable discussion, and I hope to see many of you in Vienna at AMEC.
We heard Todd and Raina share how professions worldwide are tackling the challenge of measuring PR and comms, from setting smart objectives to focusing on what truly matters to leadership and the board. Some questions I'm sure remain, so feel free to share them in the comments. But one takeaway is crystal clear. To strengthen our role as strategic enablers of business success, measuring the value we add isn't optional, it's essential. Thank you for joining this conversation today.